and for trustee in Southampton Village. Please join me before we start in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, life and liberty for all. I'm Kathy Peacock, and I'll be the moderator, and Susan Wilson will be the timer. We're members of the League of Women Voters of the Hamptons, Shelter Island, and the North Fork. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan, political, national organization. While we never endorse any candidates or parties, we're directly involved in many issues important in keeping our communities strong. We're respected for the work we do sponsoring candidate debates such as this one, and for preparing and distributing educational materials. The first debate will be between the candidates running for mayor, the incumbent Mayor Jesse Warren and former Mayor Michael Irving. The format for this debate will be the following. Since it was a virtual debate, we didn't do a coin toss. The candidates will be responding in alphabetic order, rotating with each question. We will begin with both candidates making a 2-minute opening statement. Then I'm going to ask a series of questions, and both candidates will be given 2 minutes to answer every question. After both have answered a question, each candidate will have the opportunity for a one-minute rebuttal. After all of the questions, each candidate will make a 1-minute closing statement. So we'll begin with Michael's opening statement.
Thank you, Kathy. Before we get into an introduction, I'd like to thank everybody from the League of Women Voters, and we much appreciate your being involved in this, and I've done them before with you, and it's been almost a lot of fun. So let's get going. As an introduction, I am Michael Irving, running for mayor for the village of Southampton. Previously, I was mayor in 2017 and 2019. And before that, prior to being mayor, I was a trustee for 4 years, 6 years on the planning board, 2 years as chairman. So I've been involved heavily in the village for the last 12 years. I've been 40 years plus, I hate to say it, that's more years than Jesse is old, running waterfront businesses on the Eastern Long Island. And what did that teach me is I have an in-depth understanding of the Eastern environment. I have an in-depth understanding of remediation and control of best practices. I am also, which is sort of interesting, a third generation in the village of Southampton. There's a lot of generations, but very few that continue to live in the village. If you count my grandchildren, I have 5 generations in the town of Southampton, all of them attending Southampton High School, all of them graduating from the high school. I have 2 grandchildren that are in the elementary school. So I'm embedded in the community without a doubt. I am running again, basically because I've been disheartened by the continuation of a breakup of the village of Southampton and a division in the community that's been shown more recently by these childish mailings from associations, legal associations, and private citizens.
Thank you. Your time is up. Jesse, your turn.
Good evening, everyone. And I also wanted to extend a warm thank you to the League of Women Voters, as well as to our moderator, Kathy Peacock, and our timekeeper, Susan Wilson, and also for Arlene, who I don't see here, but I wanted to thank her for her press efforts in order to get the word out. I'd also like to thank our residents and our stakeholders who are watching this debate tonight to learn more about the issues. Now, this election, we have a very clear choice. We can build off all of the success that we've had over the last 2 years and keep moving Southampton Village forward. Or we can go back to the way things were under former Mayor Irving and Mayor Epley. 2 years ago, when we took office, we inherited a very tough situation. We had record high vacancy rates and empty storefronts, the most polluted lakes and ponds in New York State. We had village residents who were not receiving proper levels of customer service from Village Hall. And we had rising taxes for 20 years, despite dramatic increases in property value and assessments. We also had an antiquated and outdated pen and paper accounting and no technology. But we've put in a lot of hard work over the last 2 years, and I'm proud to say we've made real progress on every issue. Record high occupancy rates now in the downtown. We've secured hundreds of thousands of dollars in grant funding for Lake Agawam and other water bodies, and we've started to see a real reduction in the harmful blue algae. In fact, according to Dr. Gobler just last week, the toxic algae have been all but eliminated. And while only temporary, we have a medium and long-term plan with the DEC. We've improved efficiency and transparency for the levels of customer service. We've lowered taxes for the first time in 20 years. We're updating the master plan for the first time in 20 years in order to preserve our beautiful historic village. And we just launched a new quality of life app. 2 years ago, you elected me on faith. But this year, we have a long track record of positive achievements, but there's still so much more to do. That's why I'm running again, to build on the progress we've made to improve our village for all residents. Again,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to begin the questions now. And Jesse, you're going to respond to the first question first. Newsday reported that according to a newly released departmental operations report commissioned by the village, the Southampton Village Police Department has few controls on overtime spending, receives no tangible impact from the officer assigned to a regional drug task force, and needs to revise the department's off-duty employment policy. Using the HeartNet report as a base, what are your recommendations to remedy these areas of concern and improve operation of the Village Police Department?
Thank you for the question. And before I address that, I also just wanted to let our residents know that this is crystal clear, and thank you for bringing up the report. There is no interest in defunding or dissolving our police department. However, based upon the HeartNet report, and Ed HeartNet was a former New York City Deputy Chief of Police and the former Commissioner of the City of Yonkers Police Department, he gave us some great recommendations in order to improve the efficiency of our department and make our village safer. He outlined $450,000 of overtime, which we need to get immediate controls of. He also outlined a number of serious issues where we are subsidizing other municipalities using our village resources, such as subsidizing Suffolk County, where there was one individual who made over $350,000 of salary and $82,000 of overtime. We need to rein that in, bring this officer back and put him on the street and stop subsidizing other municipalities. We also need to increase our technology. We need to make sure our detectives have the resources they need so they can move their success rates up from 18%, which is below the national average, up to 23%. Thank you. I know we have 1 minute. I thought that was the stop. There's so much more we can do. We could assess our scheduling. The report said that the scheduling is not done in a proper manner, so we can improve our scheduling. It also addressed our dispatchers, and the dispatchers are who answer the 911 phone calls. And we take pride in having great dispatchers, and I also enjoy seeing them do a great job. But what it said is that our dispatchers need more supervision. We have a lieutenant who's there to supervise them, and the report suggested he can do a better job in order to supervise our dispatchers. So there's a lot of improvement. And as the report said, we have great patrol officers. We have a safe village. And the goal is not to tear down the house, as Mr. HeartNet said, but to build it stronger and to make better improvements. So thank you for the great question, Kathy.
Thank you. Michael? You're muted. You're muted.
One of the key elements that the mayor has missed is a result of not being out on the East End. We have a system out here on the East End called shared services, where we share our services with adjoining municipalities. Very important for fire, ambulance, and police. As far as the overtime was the result, most of it, the mayor had refused to fill some vacancies in dispatch. Consequently, they were working 24/7. You can understand dispatch as being a 24/7 operation. And they were desperate to get time. They got extra time with sick time. And it was really the result of the administration not doing their job. They failed in their job. The drug task force, we had 3 overdose addictions in the village of Southampton last year, 2 deaths, all from the result of fentanyl. Our drug task force did a major raid, which knitted over 16 people off the Shinnecock Reservation. They were trading drugs right here in the middle of our village, right at the grocery store. So to say that we don't need drug task force, we don't need shared services, is a result of somebody who isn't from the East End and doesn't understand the residents of Southampton.
Thank you. We'll go on to the next question.
I'd like to rebut that if that's okay, Kathy.
Sure. Please let me know a little bit in advance. Thank you.
Okay,
Go
no
ahead.
problem.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you.
Yep.
I think what is clear from this discussion, while brief, is that Michael Irving is not interested in making any changes. And the reason why he's not interested in making any changes is because the PBA, both locally and Suffolk County wide, are running an aggressive campaign against me. And he's afraid to make any changes because of that. I will not be. And I also would add that we have a great relationship with Ed Molson, the Deputy County Executive in charge of shared services. And we work very closely in order to improve our shared services. And I'd also say that no one is talking about eliminating these departments. What we're talking about is getting compensated for the subsidies that we're providing to other municipalities. So let's make that clear. No one wants to eliminate any of these programs. What we want to do is make sure that our residents and taxpayers are fairly compensated.
Michael?
Our residents and taxpayers are fairly compensated. The mayor is incorrect. We have one of the most terrific police forces on the East End. One of the things that you look at a police force is not how much crime you have in your neighborhood. You look at a police force and how little crime you have in your neighborhood. And I'm not looking to push things back. I'm looking to go forward. We need to go forward in this community, and we need the cooperation of all our emergency services. And it would be a shame to not support them.
Okay, we're going to go on to the next question. And Michael, you'll be first on this one. I heard that the village has $150 million in long-term debt. Explain what you see as the financial health of Southampton Village. What are its strengths and liabilities? What are your recommendations to improve its strengths?
Southampton does have a long-term debt, but it is not unusual in municipalities. Most of Suffolk County all suffer from long-term debt. In fact, our long-term debt is soon to grow in 2023 through 2027, because most of our payments will be more principal oriented than interest oriented. How can we change it? Very simply, you need an administration that cooperates and communicates with its different departments. You need an administration that talks to the police department. You need an administration that works out the contract for the chief. We have 3 major contracts sitting there open right now. We have the chief of police, we have the dispatchers, and very soon the mayor is going to have to deal with the parks department. And none of these individuals have been contacted, sat down with, and reviewed by the mayor. That's where we're failing.
Thank you. Jesse?
Thank you, Kathy. There's a lot to rebut there, but I'll first start by saying just because other villages or other municipalities have a long-term liability and long-term debt problem doesn't mean that we need to. Now, the majority of the cause of the $115,328,777 of our long-term liabilities, 6.8 million of which are unfunded, unused paid vacation time, is a result of poorly negotiated contracts done by Mr. Irving and Mr. Epley, who had a series of giveaways. The reason, again, why Mr. Irving wants no change is because he wants to keep these contracts in the status quo. We'd like to renegotiate these contracts to start to chip away or to eliminate some of these long-term liabilities. If you look at our audited financials, they will say that the village has a AAA bond rating because of our tremendous tax base. But the one risk we have are these poorly negotiated contracts that are a result of these 115 million plus liabilities. I would also reject the notion that we haven't sat down with individuals. Just yesterday, I had a conversation with Marianne Wright, who's running to be the president of the CSEA, not the Parks Department. Also, we did put the chief's contract up for a vote, and I voted not to renew it and not to give him a raise because our chief of police makes $444,000 per year. Sorry, it's so big I couldn't even say it. And myself and the deputy mayor voted to not renew it to save our taxpayer money. But unfortunately, your two running mates voted to give him a raise. That's not acceptable. And the reason why our dispatcher's contract is being held up is because we want a use it or lose it paid vacation date. Our dispatchers need more paid vacation. It would probably help them to have more rest. But we can't continue to allow people to bank their paid vacation days while their salaries increase. Otherwise, that $6.8 million of unfunded, unused paid vacation days will turn into 10 and 20 and 30. So thank you for the great question, and I'm looking forward to hearing Mr. Irving's response.
Mr. Irving, go ahead.
Well, first off, the long-term liabilities is nothing that Jesse nor I nor the previous administrations did, and that's why it's long-term. But we have to deal with it, and I deal with it by negotiating on contracts. I worked for 2 years with the PBA. May not be the perfect contract that the mayor wants, but it was a contract that leveled out the playing field. It reduced the amount of raises over the next 5 years in the police department. It also was the first time in Suffolk County that we were able to get payment from new hirees towards their health care. We also gave them a retirement enhancement. The purpose was to get rid of older individuals, bring in newer, younger individuals. We reduced the number of steps for the police department. So overall, by negotiating in a contract, you can achieve a reduced raise of long-term liabilities, which this present mayor has failed to do without a doubt.
Thank you. Jesse?
Yes, all I'd like to add is that this particular contract is the single largest source of our long-term liabilities. And I also reject the notion about a retirement enhancement. It's actually the opposite. There was a pension sweetener. So all tier 2 officers, older officers, now have additional pension contributions from the village, actually making the situation worse. And in response to the contribution of health benefits, all that happened was that 15% of the health benefits for new officers, to which there are very few, they'd have to contribute that. So 15% of approximately $20,000 per year is $3,000. So we're saving $3,000 per year per officer. Not a whole lot when we had a pension sweetener that cost the village over $650,000 over a 5-year period. This contract needs to be renegotiated. It's an albatross in this village, and it's crowding us out from making infrastructure investments and from improving our village.
Thank you. We're going to go on to the next question. And Jesse, you'll be first this time. What do you feel are the pros and cons of the village's system of meetings and operations?
Thanks, Kathy. Could you please clarify that? You said the pros and cons of the village's systems of meetings and operations?
And how you are holding your town meetings, the meetings for the boards.
Got it. Well, thank you. We'd like to move our board meetings into in-person meetings. Now, during the pandemic, of course, it was challenging to use Zoom, but we did do a good job handling the pandemic and making sure we kept our village safe. It's great to be able to move to in-person meetings. We'll be back into Village Hall. But if there's enough of a crowd, we'd like to use Southampton Arts Center or even do our meetings outside. Now that the positivity rate is below 1%, now that we've led the way to getting our seniors and our village residents vaccinated, and we really led the charge there, we're more than happy to move these meetings back in person. And we'd like to build consensus within our board. But ultimately, my guidance that I'd like to issue is to move our meetings back into person and also work with the land use board chairs in order to make that happen.
Thank you. Michael?
And it's not the mayor's responsibility. Certainly COVID over the past year has restricted the meetings, especially public meetings. And unfortunately, with Zoom, you can utilize a type of government that really is very shadowy, and you don't see what's going on behind the scenes. So we need to move back into a public forum. In the years that I've been mayor, I've never seen where the room that we use, boardroom, is so full that you can't continue a meeting. So I would continue to use the boardroom. I would continue to put the individuals and the trustees, the mayor and the trustees, up in front, because when you have the general public in front of you, you take on a whole different perspective of what you're saying and what you're doing. And your responsibility is towards those individuals. So to me, an open meetings type of forum is absolutely important, especially in a small municipality.
Thank you. Jesse, you'd like to rebut?
Thank you, and I'll make it brief. I agree that we do need meetings and have them in person. But one thing that I've prided ourselves on, Mr. Irving said that he's never seen the boardroom full. Thanks to this new administration, and we give credit to everybody in Village Hall, there has never been this much interest in village politics. People across the village and outside the village want to get involved, and they want to know what's going on because we've raised awareness through our use of technology and through getting the word out of the local issues. So I'm very proud that our boardroom will be full, and it may be so full that we might have to move the location. And I think that government is about getting the people and the residents involved. And so it's great to see so much interest in our local government and so many people, both volunteers and our village employees, getting involved. And we're looking forward to having a full boardroom and hopefully moving locations because there's so much interest.
Thank you. Michael, you have a rebuttal?
Yes, I do. You know, one thing that Jesse constantly refers to is individuals from outside the community. This is a community of residents. We're the village of Southampton. We are not the town of Southampton. There's a reason that villages incorporate, and they incorporate so that they can provide the services and duties to their residents that aren't available to the outside source. So yes, there are occasions when you may have a housing development or a house that's been questioned, and you have a full staff in the boardroom, and those are great times to move it elsewhere. But generally, the residents of Southampton can be certainly served there, and there is no need for outside people coming into our meetings.
Thank you. Okay, the next question, Michael, you're going to be first. And I think both of you mentioned this in your openings, but both Southampton Village and town officials took steps this week to protect Lake Agawam, which has been considered by some one of the most polluted lakes in the state. What more do you plan to do to improve the water quality of Lake Agawam, Old Town Pond, and the other waters in the village?
We have a number of ponds, and most of our ponds are kettle ponds in the village of Southampton. They don't have an exit. They have an entrance into the pond, so there's no super flow. What we need to do is, for all our water bodies, is to create a long-term management program. Unfortunately, the most recent, which was successful on Lake Agawam with hydrogen peroxide, is a short-term thing, and we need to look at long-term. Also, I need to point out that most of your water bodies in the village of Southampton are the responsibility of the town trustees, not the village. So the village as residents shouldn't be spending tremendous amount of tax money on the waters. We should be pushing the trustees to do so.
Thank you. Jesse?
Thank you. I'd like to first say that while my passion is the environment, this is another issue where Mayor Irving had the opportunity to fix a problem, yet unfortunately didn't do so. I also wanted to say that we do have a long-term plan, and in fact, it is the first ever harmful algae bloom plan ever done with the DEC on Long Island. And we worked with Dr. Gobler and we worked with the town trustees in order to accomplish this long-term plan that included short-term plans, including the microsonic technology and the hydrogen peroxide that we used. But I also wanted to correct the record. We haven't really used taxpayer money. In fact, we've earned over approximately $1 million of grant money from the New York State DEC, from Southampton Town CPF Water Quality Fund, and from Suffolk County. We're not just addressing Lake Agawam, but we're also addressing Old Town Pond. This summer, with grant funding, we'll be installing a bioswale just on the east side of Old Town Pond. We've also got money for a study for a permeable reactor barrier. And just this past month, we're completing our dredging and sediment study on Lake Agawam so we can send that information to the DEC and dredge so we can remove the nutrients, not just the nitrogen from the septic, but the phosphorus from the sediments of Lake Agawam. And we've got RU engineers working on a sediment study for Old Town Pond as well. We've put a bioswale on the south side of Lake Agawam, and we are addressing every need possible. We've also applied for an $800,000 grant from the New York Green Technology Fund for Old Town Pond for this new technology called the constructed wetlands, which is something that I talked about doing in the 2019 debate, and we are now doing. And in addition, we've raised approximately $1 million from private funding from residents. And we've also encouraged those residents. I know Mr. Irving is going to say they're polluting the lake, but the fact of the matter is the lake is for everybody. It's something for everyone to enjoy. And the benefits of having a clean lake are health related as well. It's a public lake we want everyone to enjoy. So we're very proud to have raised millions of dollars of grant money and private money and have put together this first ever plan. And again, as I said in my opening statement, according to Dr. Gobler and what you've seen in the press, the toxic algae on Lake Agawam has all but been eliminated. Again, this is a short-term situation, but we've got our dredging that we're working on. We've got our bioswales, we've got our reduction in fertilizers, and we are succeeding. And we're very happy to have done it.
Thank you. Michael, you have a comment?
Yes, I do. I have two comments. First, if the residents of Southampton Village never paid for anything on the lake, why was there a vote for the distribution of $300,000 for the hydrogen peroxide project? That's the first thing. The second thing, the south end of the lake had nothing to do with the village of Southampton. That is actually the parking lot in the south end of the lake was made by dredging materials taken out of the lake in the early 70s. That entire area belongs to the town trustees, does not belong to the village of Southampton. So why is the village of Southampton putting in the bioswale when it is actually the town? That's why the beach stickers there are town stickers.
Jesse, you have a comment?
The only thing I'll add is I just want to again focus on the positive achievements and highlight the fact that unfortunately, Mr. Irving is once again ignoring the problem at hand and trying to shift blame to other municipalities. And I would only just correct the record again that the hydrogen peroxide treatment, as well as the microsonic devices, were paid by the New York State DEC, who gave us those microsonic devices via grant funding, and the recent treatment of hydrogen peroxide was not paid by the village of Southampton. It was actually paid through a public-private partnership through the Lake Agawam Conservancy. Now, if there will be a second hydrogen peroxide treatment, then the village will pay for it. But again, that is not $325,000. It is half of that amount. Hopefully we won't need to do it, but we're prepared to do so.
Thank you. The next question, Jesse, you'll be first. How has the pandemic affected the infrastructure in Southampton Village? Traffic, parking, schools, increase in population? And what are your plans to deal with these issues?
All right, well, that's a great question. And it also just reminds me to kind of highlight some of the positive things we did during COVID, and then we'll get to the infrastructure as well. I was very proud. I took a lot of blowback, but I was very proud to be the first mayor in the state of New York to mandate masks. I issued an executive order. Some members of the board gave me a hard time, but we followed the South Korean model and made sure that we gave masks to every single resident. We were able to procure them in March, and we had high school and college volunteers distributing them. We were also the first municipality to have a free East End testing site, helped through Hampton's Health Society and Dr. Mikolos. And because we had seniors and veterans who had a hard time using the computer, we were booking vaccine appointments for them. And we worked very closely with the hospital as well as Sun River Health to make sure that while most of Long Island, while they were having problems procuring vaccines, Southampton Village was ahead of the curve. Now, as a result of COVID, we have a lot of new residents here, and that has brought new populations. However, we have done things using technology to roll out a new quality of life app called See Click Fix. And that quality of life app, any issue will allow residents in real time to tell us what their problems are. And they get updates from Village Hall and from our DPW department and from our police department. So it is using technology to address some of the infrastructure issues that have been brought out. Now, we also are creating a sewer district to deal with some of the water quality issues. And I'm very proud to report, and we'd love to talk about this later, that thanks to our sewer task force and members like Ann Rachel Bishop and Rob Varadian and Moneypenny, we will have our sewer district formed by February 2022. This is an excellent achievement. So we're using both technology and improving our infrastructure to deal with some of the new increases in population due to COVID.
Thank you. Michael?
Without a doubt, the increase in population in Southampton is going to have effects that we haven't even seen yet. One of the major effects that I've consistently been concerned about is fresh water. And Southampton and the eastern end of Long Island has a limited source of fresh water. It comes from an aquifer that comes from Connecticut. As you draw it down, as climate changes create new levels of our ocean, we get an influx of salt. And many people who have private wells have discovered recently over the past year, because of the population increase, that they all of a sudden are turning their taps on to salt water. And all the technology in the world isn't going to help with that. We need to watch our freshwater sources. We need to be conservative on them. We need to reduce the amount of irrigation we are, and we need to look forward into the future on how we're going to get more.
Thank you. The next question, Michael, you'll go first. Diversity and inclusion in the workplace and in our organizations has come front and center over this year. What will you do to make sure that this increased awareness is reflected in the hiring practices in the village?
The village has actually always been very inclusive and watched their diversity. We have always looked at the ratio of our employees to the percentage of the diversity that are in the community. And we've always tried to address that. One great source for getting diversity is our TCOs. Many of those TCOs come from diverse ethnic backgrounds, and many of them get an interest in policing, get an interest in EMTs, get an interest in our fire departments, and they move on. As you can see, we also have junior fire departments. So I think the village is very proactive in that direction.
Great. Jesse?
Thank you. I would disagree with Mr. Irving's assessment that the village is proactive. It's a little bit of a egocentric way of looking at things. We have done things in order to improve diversity and inclusion. We were very proud to hire Derek Highsmith back to the building department, but it was pointed out in the HeartNet report, unfortunately, that I think the last 7 hires to our police department were all white males, and that has to change. It has to change because the employees who represent our village should also represent the fabric of our village as well. We also have built relationships with many of our religious leaders, such as Reverend Butler, who's become a mentor of mine as well. We've created a diversity committee, and we've appointed Sandra Dozier to help us reach out to individuals to let people know that when we're hiring, we'd like more people to apply. And in addition to that, we are in the process of rolling out a program when we recruit our dispatchers to notify more people about it and to help get people trained in order to take the civil service exam and even pay for those who make under a certain income level in order to become a dispatcher. Oftentimes, it's these civil service tests that get in the way of diversity. So we want to make sure that we do everything we can to make sure that the right people and the most amount of people and a diverse amount of people take these exams. But it's critical that we increase our diversity in Village Hall. And we also are relying closely on some of our religious leaders, as I mentioned, Reverend Butler, as well as Pastor Faison, to help us improve diversity.
Thank you. Now, this is unfortunately going to have to be the last question because we're running out of time. And Jesse, you'll be first. Are you in favor of updating the Southampton Village Master Plan that was produced in 2000? If so, how would you go about it? And what areas do you feel need a new focus?
All right, Kathy, I'm glad you asked that question because we just funded the new update to our master plan. And we're looking forward to working with Frank Fish in order to do so. Now, the master plan should be updated every 5 years, but unfortunately it wasn't. It hasn't been updated in 20 years, as you pointed out. So we're looking forward to working with that. Now, the most important part of updating our master plan is to include the community in the process. So over the next 6 to 9 months, we're going to have multiple public hearings so that we can hear from our residents so they can tell us what our village should look like. And that goes hand in hand with our new sewer system that we'll be working on. Again, the sewer district will be formed in February 2022, but like West Hampton Beach, it might take 5 to 6 years in order to build the infrastructure if everything goes well. But they both go hand in hand. But we'd like to reimagine our downtown so that Nugent Street and Windmill Lane could become more pedestrian friendly to include more restaurants and theaters with our increased wet use. We also want to address Southampton Hospital, which is what this master plan is going to do as well. Southampton Hospital is the largest employer in the village. And when we lose the hospital, it could be 5 years, it could be more. There's a bit of a delay in that move because of COVID, but we need to make sure that we have the right plan and the right zoning. We also need to address workforce housing. As a business owner myself, it is very difficult to hire people, especially local people, because there is nowhere to live. And generations that come with us are going to need a place to live. And some of that workforce housing should be in the downtown. And so we want to think about our master plan to work on zoning so that we can have a little more workforce housing in our downtown and make sure that there's not overdevelopment like we've seen over the last 10 or 15 years, and make sure that zoning fits the needs of our village and is what our community wants.
Thank you. Michael?
Well, the mayor is correct that we haven't done a comprehensive plan in over 20 years, but we did do a business district plan relatively recently. And in that business district plan, we did have workforce housing in apartments. We took a close look at the business district. And the main reason we were doing that is because we had a sewer plan and a sewer district already set. He's correct. Southampton Hospital needs a close look at, which he should have done before. He should have done a reuse study on the property of Southampton. So when we get to the point of negotiating and sitting down with the hospital, we know the direction that the village wants to go in. And we failed in doing that. That was never done. When I left office, we had a firm hired to do a reuse study.
Thank you. Jesse, you have a comment?
I'll make it quick. I guess I reject the fact that Mr. Irving is saying that we didn't do anything. We did engage a firm to update our master plan, and we did so during a pandemic. When Mr. Irving was in office, this master plan wasn't done. And he's right, there was a master plan from 2013, but that is not recent. While Mr. Irving was mayor, he had a super majority on the board, and he certainly did not have a pandemic. So we've done every single thing he's saying we should be doing, and we had 14 months of a global pandemic to which we led the charge. So I would just simply reject that notion and say that we are well on our way into accomplishing our goals.
Yes. Go ahead, Michael.
Usually when you do a sewer district, and usually when you're looking to put in sewers, you complete the master plan first. So you know what your demands and needs are going to be, specifically with the Southampton Hospital, because we aren't sure what the development design is going to be on not only their main complex, but the houses that they surround or that surround the hospital. It seems that the mayor has got the right concept. He's going in the right direction, but he's behind the 8 ball because he's not doing it in logical order.
Thank you. We're now going to go into closing statements, and each candidate may make a 1-minute closing statement. And Jesse, you'll be first.
Thank you. And Thank you again to our League of Women Voters for hosting this debate. And thank you, Mayor Irving, for conducting this debate alongside of me. And thank you to our village residents. 2 years ago, we were faced with a position, as we said earlier, with our vacant storefronts and our polluted lakes and our rising taxes and our lack of planning for the village. We have turned it around. Our stores are full, our lakes are getting cleaner, our master plan is being updated, and property taxes are lower. We can keep on moving our village forward. We are looking forward to doing it. And I'm hoping our village residents and our voters will allow me to, and give me the honor to serve you for 2 more years so we can see these many exciting projects through. I have given everything I have to this village for the last 2 years. We have led during the pandemic, and I'm looking forward to having the opportunity to giving you 2 more years in order to achieve our goals. Thank you very much, everybody. We're looking forward to moving Southampton Village forward. We're looking forward to completing our projects, and we're looking forward to 2 more positive years.
Thank you. Michael, you have 1 minute. I believe you're muted.
Thank you, and I want to thank the league for putting on this debate, and I would like to thank the mayor for putting up with me, to be quite frankly. I hope I'm not attacking him too much, but you know, there seems to be such a breakup in the village of Southampton that I find very concerning, and it's not just the lake, the COVID. It's the community itself. It's the people themselves. There's a huge division now, which shouldn't be a division. And I think that if we can all get together and have community unity, we can start doing some of these projects that we all want the benefit for the village, without a doubt. It's just how we get there that's different. And I really hope that everybody takes a look at SV 21, takes a look at me for mayor and our 2 trustees, both Andrew Pallaro and Mark Parrish, because I think we present a good team that can move Southampton forward into the next period of its history. We've been here for 300 years and we're going to be here a lot longer.
Thank you. I'd like to thank both of the candidates for joining us, for their candor and their professionalism. I enjoyed both of you. So now I'm talking to all of our audience. Please stay tuned. We're going to switch immediately to the trustee debate.
Thank you.
So Charles will turn everybody on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Robin, we can.
Thank you.
We're just waiting for Mark.
There you go.
Okay. So now we're going to go on to the debate for the trustees. And the debate will have almost the same format as the last one. Each candidate will make a 2-minute opening. I'll ask a series of questions. I'll have 2 minutes to answer the question. And they may rebut a question 3 times during the debate. And then they'll make a 1-minute closing statement. So let me introduce the candidates. They are the incumbents, Mike Parrish and Andrew Pallaro, and challengers Robin Brown and Roy Stevenson. These 4 candidates are running for 2 seats. So now let's go right into our opening statements. And Robin, you begin.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. My name is Robin Brown. I've lived here with my husband for 22 years, and I'm running for village trustee. I believe I'm qualified for this position because I am an innovative thinker, a smart worker, and I care about our village. I say the thing that really sets me apart from the other candidates is my humanitarian work. For the last 20 years, I've spent most of my free time volunteering both overseas and right here at home. That includes opening a home for abused women and teen maternity house in Atlanta, helping build a school and medical clinic and orphanage in South Africa, creating a microgrant program to empower female entrepreneurs. And right here at home, I've served as the board president for Eastville Community Historical Society, whose mission, our mission, is historic and land preservation. Now I'm running for trustee because I want to serve our village. I think my skills and experiences can really benefit our community. My priorities include more housing options for our seniors and younger residents, cleaner lakes and ponds, reasonable development and historic preservation instead of overdevelopment, and restoring the vibrancy of our downtown. These are all the areas I believe I can assist in, and I'd love the chance to do so and serve our village. I have always believed in the importance of integrity and grace, and if elected, I'll spend every day representing you with both of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, you're next.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you to the League of Women Voters, CTV, and hello to all that are watching, Robin, Roy, and Andrew. Hello to you too. My name is Mark Parrish. I am 50 years old. I was born in 1970 in Southampton Hospital on Christmas Day. What a present my mother got that day, that's for sure. I am a lifelong village resident. I live with my wife and 2 children in the house that I grew up in. So I'm very fortunate to have that opportunity in this village, and I'm very proud of that. I graduated from Southampton High School. I attended school in Chester, Pennsylvania, and I got a government and politics degree. I decided to come back and join the family business. I've had 3 jobs my whole life, all in Southampton Village. So I guess you could say I'm a local product. Right now, I'm 3rd generation business owner of Sip and Soda, which was started by my grandparents in 1958. I am a legacy in Southampton Village politics. Back in the 1980s, my father, Paul, was also a Southampton Village trustee. Currently, I'm a sitting trustee and seeking another term. I was elected by the residents in July of 2019, and I thank you for that. I've worked hard over the last 2 years, faced many challenges, a pandemic being dropped in our lap. I didn't panic, I pivoted. And I thought, what is best for Southampton Village? And through that, we came up with a lot of great solutions. Southampton in the streets, we closed off streets to get people feeling more safe. We expanded outdoor dining, which gave opportunities to businesses to think outside the box. We also surf legislation. I was one who sponsored the Art in the Windows campaign. So a lot of good things have been happening, but there's a lot more to come. Cleaner water, financial stability, long-term visions, things like that. Thank you.
Andrew, you're next.
Thank you, Kathy. Good evening, everyone, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting the debate tonight. My name is Andrew Polaro, and I am running for re-election as one of your village trustees. I have served the village in various capacities, including sitting on the board of the Southampton Youth Center and the Southampton Christmas Decorations Committee. It has been my honor to serve as a village trustee for the last 2 years. I had the privilege of growing up in Southampton and raised 4 sons while living both in Dublin, Ireland and Southampton. I am glad I can give back to the community with my wife, Charlotte, and I are lucky to call home. When I am not working on behalf of the village, I am president of my family office. But tonight, I want to speak to you about the importance of good governance, achieved by transparency and process. This has been a focal point of my time in office, and I hope to continue this outlook and vision for another 2 years, as there is still much progress to be made. My approach to the village has been to advocate for a stronger community, a stronger business district, and a strategic vision for the future. an equitable environment in which families and villagers can thrive, and finally, a clean environment for all to enjoy. I was recently reading a passage about the philosophy of Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. Aurelius had to preside over a Senate, lead troops into battle, and make decisions on every facet of his people's daily life, and did so with a time-tested method. He made sure to remain calm and keep his anger at bay so that his decision-making would be seamless and focus on the purpose and principle he most valued, doing the right thing. This filter eliminates bad choices and highlights the correct one. While those who have modeled these principles have usually been on the world stage, I feel these tenets are applicable in the arena of our community. The theory of good governance rings true on any level, and good governing can be applied anywhere. Over the past year, our community has dealt with the hardship due to COVID, but by working together and instilling strong processes and review systems.
Thank you. Thank you. Roy, you're next.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, League of Women Voters. Thank you to everybody who's watching this. I first came to Southampton as a newborn in 1955, and I've been here every year since. For the last 21 years, my wife, Polly, and I have lived here year-round, raising our daughters and running Stevenson's Toys and Games on Job's Lane. For my education, I received my undergraduate degree from Harvard and an MBA from Emory University. I've served on the Southampton Village Planning Board since 2007. I am running for trustee because it's clear our village is at a tipping point. Developmental pressures are threatening the very characteristics that make this place so special. These are the three issues I will focus on as trustee. First, overdevelopment is poisoning our lakes and consuming our open spaces. The village has no defense, as our comprehensive master plan, which is the vision for what we want our village to be, has not been revised for 20 years, resulting in business codes, which are the most lax in the Hamptons. With input from the community, we will revise our master plan and building codes so that they reflect our village's current attitudes towards development, not from 20 years ago. Second, our village business district is stagnating. Because of the pollution in Lake Agawam, no new restaurants can be created. Stores with vacant offices on their second floors cannot convert them to apartments to provide lower cost housing. Why? There is no more room for any cesspools to handle the additional waste. We need a sewer system now. I will do whatever I can to expedite its completion. Third, while controlling development and constructing a sewer will help, we must do more. I will restore and protect this place of incredible natural beauty so that my grandson can fish in Lake Agawam and feed the ducks like I did when I was a boy. Most importantly, I pledge to listen to you, the residents, the taxpayers. I will do my best to do what is right for our village. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to start the questions, and Mark, you're going to be the responder on the first responder on the first question. Do you believe there's a rift between the village board and the police department? What aspects of the HeartNet report would you advocate implementing?
Is there a rift between the village board and the PD? I don't think that's accurate. I think there is a rift between some board members and the PD. More importantly, the HeartNet report is a very interesting subject because in December, we and the fellow trustees interviewed 3 different consultants. I was very much in favor of having a consultant come in and looking at the police department, because I looked at it as we'd be able to strengthen our positions and expand our capabilities to serve the community better. We met with 3, we decided on 1, a very qualified individual named Ed Hartnett. But there came a point when a group was brought up in front of us at a meeting that was going to be a layer in between the board and the consultant, a task force. I wasn't comfortable with that. I felt that having a layer in between the board and ourselves would get information lost in translation, to say it that way. I did not vote in favor of it. I had my concerns because I was unsure about the educational side of all the members of the task force. I did speak to all of them. They were very, very, very nice, but I didn't understand the fact that they didn't have a background. Went ahead, it got done. What happened then was the task force presented the HeartNet report before myself and any other trustee had seen it. I found that concerning since we are elected to do these things as village trustees. More importantly, when it came out, it was very scathing. It put the department in the light that growing up here and seeing it all the time, I never had. Thank goodness Ed Hartnett came and straightened things out and basically said that most of those points were not his, but theirs. And he wasn't even aware of that. I found it very concerning, and it has put this village at a divide that in my lifetime I have not seen. And it's something that really needs to be looked at because our police department can be strengthened and our capabilities expanded. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew, you're next.
Thank you, Kathy. And yes, I tend to agree with some of the points made by Trustee Parrish as well, that it was a change in where we were and what we had hoped that was going to occur with the Ed Hartnett report. But even more importantly, I think that the trustees, the Board of Trustees, needs to understand what we want for our village police department. Our village police department serves in many different capacities to our village residents. Not only are they called when there are break-ins or car thefts that occur, but they're also called when a geese is pecking at a door or a raccoon is in a basement. That wouldn't really occur in many other areas around the country. So this village board really needs to look at and see how and what we want our village police force to look like. And then we could break into how to better serve the residents. Are there things that were in the Ed Hartnett that can be implemented to make us stronger? Absolutely. And I think that was one of the things that, he mentioned in there was he gave us the tools to build the house up, not to tear it down. And the disparity between the task force that interpreted those or made those recommendations and interpreted the Hartnett report was very different than what actually was in the Hartnett report. So I too was very glad that he was able to come and speak to the village board. Thank you.
Thank you. Roy?
Everyone's seen the Save Our Police signs around the village. In talking about them with residents, many have said to me, Roy, if the police are getting paid a little too much, it's okay. They have a tough and thankless job. Well, I agree, and I offer my sincere thanks to our SVPD, volunteer firemen, and ambulance service workers for the work they do to keep us safe. I believe the signs were in response to the release of the Hartnett report. It's posted on the village website, and everyone should read it. If only the summary on the first 5 pages and the recommendations on page 65 and 6. It doesn't say to defund the police. It doesn't say to reduce the police budget. What it does is compare how our department operates with the best practices of other similarly sized police departments. That comparison highlights some areas that could be improved to provide better services at less cost. Its main recommendation is that we expand the oversight of our police force from one trustee to the complete village board, and that the board and the public have a monthly meeting with the police chief. Recommendations for improvement: broader and more transparent oversight. These are not threats to our police force. These are efforts to make it even better. Village taxpayers value their safety and security above everything else. They're willing to pay to have the most well-compensated police force on Long Island. I am 100% pro-police. But because I'm 100% pro-taxpayer, I'll work as your trustee to ensure we have the most efficient police force as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin?
Well, the police force is quite dear to me and important to the village. It's dear to me because it's memories of my father being a police officer, the respect that I have for the work that he's done, and therefore the respect that I appreciate. I think a little differently than others what the work is being done that our police officers render to our village each and every day with their lives, and I thank them for it. I do believe that, it is a layer of checks and balances. And as a trustee, we have a responsibility to our police officers as well as our taxpayers. And I believe having a healthy negotiation, finding out what's beneficial for our officers as well as our taxpayers is definitely a solution that can happen. Both can be accomplished. And I think coming to the table for a healthy negotiation, achieving this for both the village and the police officers is one that should be done.
Thank you. The next question, Andrew, you'll be first. What are the steps involved and the difficulties in the plan to bring sewers to Southampton Village? And how would you expedite this project?
Kathy, thank you. Yeah, that's a wonderful question. In fact, I was actually on the phone today with one of the trustees from Westhampton Beach to talk about the process that they went through. They just recently broke ground in April of 2021. 6 years in the process it's taken them to break that ground. And they have the benefit of being able to tie into the Suffolk County sewer system. So we have a long road ahead of us in what we are doing. And so I think that there are multiple steps that need to be done. And there are also, first and foremost is the sewer district and wastewater treatment area that will serve for the village. And that is in process right now. We hired at our last meeting a firm that will be doing that. And once that is in place, then we also have to look at the other areas that we have, as we know that the hospital has some excess capacity, and to see if we could potentially tap into that. We have other areas where we want to build a wastewater treatment facility. And then there is also the new hospital that will be being built at some stage. And if there is a chance to possibly tap into that, as well as it coming down the lines for a larger portion of the western part of the village, that could be very interesting. So there are many different moving parts, and a process needs to be followed for each of them. We can't just sit here and hope that things will move forward. There needs to be the process. And in talking to the trustee at Westhampton, I better understand the process that they have gone through and the time frame and the taking that it is. And also that the grants that they received, alone, they received close to 11, almost 12, just under $12 million in grants from New York State. And so I think that is something that we should deeply look into as well.
Thank you. Roy, you're next.
If anyone was listening during the mayor's debate, they heard former Mayor Irving discuss how he had a sewer plan and a sewer district on his desk in 2015. I was extremely excited at that time that we would actually finally begin to move forward in this area, and was tremendously disappointed that we didn't. And I never quite understood why. I don't know if he blanched at the cost. I think there was some concern over whether the cost should be levied only on the businesses in the business district, which of course would be a huge amount of money for them to all pay, or spread across the broader section of the village. That said, we didn't do anything. And now all of a sudden we hear talking about Westhampton Beach and how their plan did work. And basically they took our plan and implemented it. Somehow they were able to figure out how to get 65% of the cost of their sewer system paid for by other bodies besides the village taxpayers in Westhampton Beach. And now in next year, they will have a fully operational sewer system and revitalized Main Street. The time to move is now. Let's stop talking about this. There's going to be infrastructure money from the Biden administration where we can borrow money at 0%. Money should not be the problem, but we need a sewer system. It's back in the 19th century. We need to move into the 21st century and stop figuring out who do we do here and what do we do that, and let's freaking get going. We need a sewer system now. The business system, the business district in Southampton is dying without it. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin?
Well, the good news is the sewer system is the answer to many of the concerns that our villagers are looking for. Being able to have the vibrancy of a downtown, the ability to have more housing. So the sewer system is the good news. I feel strongly that I believe that a firm has been engaged, and so I don't feel that it will be a difficult thing. I think it is perhaps something that will take some time, and I'm sure that the time that's needed, our villagers will accept and understand by receiving the benefits of it. And as was mentioned, it is quite exciting to know that the ability to apply for grants and receiving 65% is a very good one. So I think it is an exciting, moving forward addition to our village that the trustees and our villagers are excited about.
Thank you. Mark?
Yes, it is exciting. And as a sitting trustee, I was privy to a lot of information when we first got in. And I personally met with a lot of people who did this type of work, from Pio Lombardo to H2M. And now we had just hired D&B. And the really interesting thing is that when COVID hit, we found an influx of population swell, and vibrancy picked up. And so that was a really good thing to know, that we are capable of having a vibrant village. Now, to extend that, the advanced water technology is the step, and it was a step 2 years ago. The master plan is a very good point, because the master plan is going to probably follow the advanced wastewater system. And D&B is looking at different ways to use cleaner technology. And that is very exciting to hear, because that means we possibly could do spot areas where we can use possibly some other things to get things going. Is what I talked about probably a year and a half ago with Pio Lombardi, with these advanced wastewater systems that go underneath parking lots. It can get us jump started. Also, we still have to remember, we still can have dialogue and conversation with the hospital. It's one of the things I would really like to do. And I think that it is important that this board re-engages them and talks to them about their future and how we can walk together and figure out something else that is beneficial, because that would be a huge jumpstart. That would cut time tremendously. And as a business owner, I understand the cost of what it is to have cesspools. I have 5. I would love to go to a cleaner, more environmental friendly path, and to be able to have apartments, to be able to do these things that we're all thinking about and getting it done. And the time is now. You're absolutely right. But as a sitting trustee, I have some institutional knowledge that is definitely beneficial to getting this path going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, Roy, you'll be first. What are your recommendations for supporting local businesses affected by the pandemic? Things like street closures for outdoor dining, support for rental costs. What are your recommendations?
Well, I think one of the great benefits of COVID, if there is any benefit from such a terrible pandemic, is that it opened up the doorway for people to explore outdoor dining. And I think it's been a huge success. I know this event has been particularly hard on restaurants with the restrictions that the state put on them in terms of not having people and not being able to have their bar open without people eating food there. So it's been very difficult. My friend Frank Lenahan owns Le Chef right next door to me, and I know he's had a tough time of it. I'm really happy to see things opening up and restaurants being able to get that going. The Village Business District in the summer is one of the most busy places in the world. I mean, it's the issue with the business district to me is, how do we get people here the rest of the year? And again, the sewer is key to that, because if we had apartments on top of buildings, I thought it was a 2-minute answer.
You held up the wrong card. Go ahead.
If we had apartments in front of buildings, on top of buildings, there'd be people living in the village. If we had more restaurants, people would be drawn to the village. There'd be people visiting, wandering around. We'd have street life like Sag Harbor. It would be great, but right now we don't. So the key is, how can we get people here when the businesses really need them in the slow months of January, February, March, and later in the winter? Closing the streets is great. The festivals in the park are great. The art cultural things are great. All those things need to be done. We're doing a pretty good job at that. But the key, of course, is to just get more street traffic. And I think the key to that is the sewer. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin?
Well, that question is near and dear to me, because I thought very much about our business owners. And what I would have liked to have seen is utilizing maybe additional, before the pandemic, grant writers, because as I was speaking to many of the store owners, it would have been helpful to have them to have access to grant writers to help them to navigate the assistance that came underneath the CARES Act. So I know that some of them had the ability to do it, while others did not. So I like to be a forward thinker. I would like to have that in place for them. And I also would like to see, as far as, bringing creative ideas, I think it would be great to have like a bicycle tour. The Grand Prix of the Southamptons. It keeps our environment clean. People are in for the day. They're cycling around our beautiful areas, and they're stimulating our economy, and then they're going home. So those are two things I'd like to do. It would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Mark?
Thank you. This is very near and dear to me because I was one of those restaurants that was impacted, and it was really challenging. One of the first things I thought about as a business owner is how, what? And then I thought about my fellow business owners, not just restaurants, but retail, because we were all affected. So I decided to say, hey, what can we do? Hit the pavement, started going around with a tape measure, measuring the red bricks that are around the village. We're fortunate enough in most of our business districts, we have a really wide sidewalk that not a lot of other municipalities have. So I thought about that and I said, hey, maybe we can do this, still have access for pedestrians to go through, and why not? COVID brought a why not attitude to this village, and it wasn't perfect, but we were able to think outside the box, shut down some streets, expand outdoor dining, give people a chance to feel good again and be safe. It was a good response. It wasn't perfect. That's why we're working with some firms now to try and find out if we do it again, which I would totally support. What's the best way to go about it with an opening side of COVID now? We're in a different time, so it needs different ideas. I talked about getting together with the cultural center, the arts center, expanding some of their events into the streets, getting people. The one thing that we know now more so than anything else, especially after a year where we were locked down, is people want to share experiences together again, safely. This village can do that. I have committed myself to thinking outside the box. I feel strongly that this village is successful to the point where people from other municipalities were coming and saying, hey, what you did was great. We would come there all the time now. So maybe this is a rebirth for us. But the advanced water technology is the key to the future. But in the meantime, we can start experimenting because that's what's going to help us grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew?
Thank you. Yes, I think COVID really changed the way that people tried to do business, and it was a pivot. It wasn't it was a crash at the beginning, and then it was a pivot to see how things could work. And the board really did think outside the box with the outdoor dining, but we also helped other businesses as well by recreating the new website and the marketing campaign for the small businesses in the village. We passed legislation to beautify vacant storefronts, and we held our second holiday window shopping decorating contest for the windows in the village, and that brought a festive cheer to the downtown area. So there were lots of little things that were done, and I feel good about where we are today, and we are starting to come out of some of the COVID restrictions that have been placed on us. And those restrictions are allowing us to now have a larger area for our farmers market that will run through November. We are going to have our Concert in the Park series again, which again people enjoy very much, and will bring people out and together and into this village. So there are plenty of things that will be going on this summer. There are plenty of things that will continue to accelerate as the laws and rules change under COVID. And the wastewater, as has been said, the wastewater treatment will be a big thing for us going forward, because it will allow for future experiences to be looked at. And I think that will be paramount in conjunction then with the redevelopment of our long-term strategy.
Thank you. This is unfortunately going to be the last question. And Robin, you're going to be first. What would you do to expand the amount of affordable housing available in the village? Rentals, home ownership? What ideas do you have?
That is a wonderful question. And what I would like to see happen would be partnering with developers that are conscious and courteous of doing a fine job, and that the village would be empowered to be being part of the owners. Therefore, it would bring in affordable housing. It would also bring in revenue for the village. And as well as that, we would be able to receive grants for senior housing and also for affordable housing. So I think it's a win-win situation, being able to have the affordable housing, senior housing, partnering with a developer that respects the guidelines of our beautiful village, and then bringing in additional revenue.
Thank you. Mark?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, great question. And it's interesting, the point Robin brought up about partnering, because back in the Southampton Press editions, and they had the live Q&As back before the pandemic, one of the things I thought about was a totally crazy idea. Well, that the village can purchase properties. I mean, we own some ourselves already, but why not look into purchasing homes, using them for long-term realities of people's, affordable housing. I've had constituents come to me and said, we have to sell our house, we have to move out. We've done a reverse mortgage and it's just not working anymore. That's sad. People have spent 50, 60, 70 years here paying taxes in those, pouring their hearts out, and they have to leave. So to that aspect, yeah. Is it crazy? Yeah, it probably is. But is it doable? Sure. In this day and age, everything's doable. It's something to think about. If it means partnering with developers who are conscious and things like that, then that's definitely a path that as a trustee, I would look into. It is the strength, the fabric of the community is the strength of this village. And having people here on a full-time basis is going to be the key to our success. And we have been going around, we're looking at some properties right now that are going to be possibly on the highway, but that could affect another part of one of our great neighborhoods that I'm not in favor of. I want to make sure that our residents are put first. I want to make sure that our people that need to be here year round, our volunteers, are put first. So let's keep on grinding out on this, and let's start asking more questions about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew?
Thank you, Kathy. And yes, as a sitting trustee, we have been able to create, we created and changed the auxiliary apartment legislation so that it become a little easier for homeowners who have auxiliary apartments to be able to rent them out and have them vetted by the village and get a permit for them so that they can be used in exactly what has been spoken about. But there are, again, there are not a lot of those auxiliary apartments out there right now. So in trying to look at and see how can be done, we need to think outside the box. We need to start changing some of the things and how it's been done. And it would be wonderful, if there were homeowners willing to want to do a reverse mortgage, which would allow them to stay in their property until such time when they couldn't be, and the village would own these and have the upkeep and maintenance of it. But that also does put the village under some strain as well for the next little bit. But again, Vail did this very long ago, and they have seen the benefit many years out. So depending on how long we want to look into the future, starting today, we could have it down the road for a very, very long while.
Thank you. Roy?
Thanks, Kathy. That's probably the hardest question you've asked all night because it's so knotty a problem. I mean, Southampton Village sits upon some of the most valuable real estate in the United States. So how you create affordable housing on top of that real estate is certainly a difficult issue. In the planning board, I heard a presentation from the owner of the Southampton Inn about how they want to take property they own adjacent to the inn and convert some of it into affordable housing, which I think is a very admirable goal. I asked the question because I didn't know, what is the income level to qualify as being affordable housing? And I found that in Suffolk County, that comes out to an income of about $135,000 a year. it's not exactly that low a level. I mean, it's not enough to afford a $3 or $4 million house, as many of the houses in our village sell for, but it's still fairly high. I'm wondering if there are other ways. I mean, one of the first persons who signed one of my petitions, Diane Deutschman, was telling me how she's lived in her house for years. The taxes keep going up. Perhaps there's a way to carve out a special exemption or a special rate for senior citizens who are property owners. I don't know if that can be done, but I've heard it discussed and it may be a possibility. But really it's a balancing technique because, again, in the planning board, there was a discussion about what to do with the Four Seasons property on North Main Street, whether that might be possible to put affordable housing as a development there. You've got to balance. Do you want more high density development right in the middle of the village with parking issues and whatnot, compared to, do we want affordable housing? That's something the village residents have to decide. And I think that's why we need to have their input in developing a new comprehensive master plan.
I've been told I can sneak one more question in. So I'm going to make it one that gives you a lot of latitude. And Mark, you're going to be first. What is the biggest challenge you see facing Southampton Village?
Ooh, biggest challenge. I would start off with uniting this community again. Right now, because of COVID and because of all the other things that have been pushed our way, we are at a point where we are isolated and we become vigilant. We're coming out of it. You're seeing people's attitudes, be a little bit different, a little bit maverick at times, I would say. But that's really important to me as a person who's lived here for their whole life and really has been a product of this village and how the village has basically helped me grow. It's important that we find stability. It's important that we find proper leadership that's going to help guide us through these times, because these things will end and we will be able to do the things that this village is so great. This village attracts people because of its values, its character. That's what this village premises is. And that's why we are one of the best villages, arguably the best out on the East End. So we need to get back to that fabric of the community where we can work together. We don't always have to agree, and that's fine. That spurs innovation in a lot of ways, in my opinion. But to continue to realize that this village and the principles that have been passed down from the 1640s, from the late 1800s, till now, from people who put their hard work into governing, people who put their hard work into making things happen, and to really just be all on the same page at times, because we know that this is a really special place to live. And I'm honored to be a resident. I'm also honored to be a village trustee. And continuing to do this job is important to me. So let's start with that. Let's get advanced wastewater technology, and let's put Southampton moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew, what's your biggest challenge?
I think one of the biggest challenges that we face, besides some of the things that Mark brought off also, is that Southampton and some of the smaller streets have kind of become a cut through for some of the areas. So traffic has become a big issue in the mornings coming in and in the evenings going home. And it's one of the things that, I'm very glad as a trustee that, we have now purchased 2 trailers that will help us, one with speed on streets and also get some data in where things are going. I think that it will also allow us to do a larger traffic study, which we walked on. I was able to help walk on a resolution at the last meeting to do an overall traffic study of the village. I was involved in one 2 years ago on Hill Street that brought crosswalks onto Hill Street in 2 areas. And it also added to the light timing on Hampton Road and Pine Street. Again, a 7-second difference might not seem that great, but it allowed for the traffic to continue flowing through it and past the bottleneck on Hampton and Main Street. So again, this also acts for the safety of our village residents and the people who are out walking, biking, jogging in the areas. And so I think that it is something that is very important and something that is very near and dear to many, many people and many residents that I have heard from. So I think that, while there are very other big fish out there in what, is the biggest challenge for Southampton, I think this is up in the top 3 as well.
Thank you. Roy?
I'm running for trustee, as I've mentioned, because I support causes like clean water, a sewer system, and controlling development. And frankly, I would support anyone who wants to move the village in that direction. The SV21 party says they're for those issues, but their record shows little effective action. The fact is, from my seat, I see that Jesse Warren has done more to make progress in those areas in the last 2 years than the previous administrations did in the last 15. Do I agree with everything Mayor Warren has done? Of course not. But I don't agree with everything my wife does either, and we've been married for 37 years. I've heard complaints from my opponent's supporters about the increasing number of second homeowners who are now voting in village elections. Hey, they live here. They pay taxes too. I've also heard accusations that the goal of cleaning Lake Agawam is really just a ruse by the rich homeowners around the lake to have the entire village clean up their mess. The fact is, less than 1% of the lake and pond pollution comes from the surrounding houses. The vast majority of pollutants flow as runoff from home sites as far north as the highway. Second homeowners against year-rounders. Summer people versus locals. These are the divisions my opponents seek to exploit. Isn't it clear that to prosper, we must work together as one village, that everyone in the village benefits when we have clean lakes, when a sewer system enables us to enjoy a vibrant business district, when we can continue to enjoy the village's rural nature in the years to come by controlling development? We need to get rid of the divisive politics of personality that I've seen in our village boardroom over the last 2 years. Let's stop trying to make each other look bad and start doing what's right for the village.
Thank you. Robin, what is the biggest challenge for you in Southampton Village?
I think one of the biggest challenges that the village is experiencing is overdevelopment. But the good news is, with a comprehensive plan, we can now put into play reasonable and thoughtful development that will yield housing to our seniors and our young people, solutions to keeping the environment clean and well. So the good news is there is a solution. And sometimes when you have challenges, that's what gives us creative thinking. So I'm looking forward to moving forward and having reasonable and thoughtful development that's beneficial to all the village. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to closing statements now. Oh, sorry, we have a rebuttal. Go ahead.
Thank you, Kathy. I'd raised my hand a while ago and thought
I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. I'm
that's
sorry.
quite all right. I just wanted to rebut a couple of things that Mr. Stevenson said with regards to overdevelopment and water quality. First and foremost, if you look at my voting record as a sitting trustee, I have voted for every water quality environmental issue that has come up in the positive. I also think that there are many more than just Lake Agawam and Old Town Pond. There is Cooper's Pond and Halsey Neck Pond that are smaller bodies of water that could ultimately probably even be remediated quicker. And there are many other ways to be looking at things that we should explore. Also, if we talk about overdevelopment and the village latch, trustees have nothing to do with regards to that, but the head of the planning board and Mr. Stevenson voted for that and for many other developments that have created over the last little bit.
Thank you. Now we'll go, yes, Mr. Stevenson, go ahead.
Yes, I voted for the village latch with huge reluctance. I was handcuffed because the village's codes have not been updated in 20 years. And Mr. Parrish should know that the village latch is purely, the planning board is purely an administrative board. We don't get to veto a plan just because we don't like it. If the plan meets the village codes, the existing village codes, which are the most lax in the Hamptons, we are required, is our duty to approve the plan. That's what somebody with integrity does. We do our duty when we're forced to. but I'm fed up with it. That's why I'm running for trustee. I don't want to keep enforcing codes that are 20 years old. I want to control development by creating a new master plan and tightening our building codes so that the Southampton Hospital doesn't turn into the same super high density, as many condos jammed into it as possibly can be, as Village Latch was. So if you want more stuff like the Village Latch in the village, it's a fine place. I'm sure that the condos are very nice, great. But if you don't want that, want the rural nature of the village, I think you should vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick comment. So the planning board is basically the gateway for any developments. And so sitting on that board, you do make decisions, and handcuffed is, a word that you could use, but you always have the power to say no. I've had to say no a couple of times reluctantly, but you do it as a person that is appointed by the Board of Trustees to safeguard our village. It's one of the things that's very important. The SV 21 and all these accusations, we're here to talk about the village. So there's another time and place for that. And I feel strongly that the leadership that we can come into with a new regime would be productive and stable and really help us move forward. We have the tools. We have the personnel. We just need to get away from it being about me. It's not about me. It's about the village and what's best for it moving forward. Because like Roy, you said earlier, it's about your grandkids. Hopefully mine too one day, where they can fish in Agawam, they can go onto the beach and have those access points that are very important that you enjoyed as a young person and I enjoyed as a young person. So again, there's a time and a place, and this is all about saying, hey, let's make this village the best. And I feel I can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll do closing statements, and Roy, you'll be first.
Well, thank you to everybody who's been watching this. It's been fascinating and interesting for me to participate in it. And thank you, League of Women Voters. And thank you to my fellow trustee candidates and incumbent trustees, Parrish and Polaro, for being here. In my opening remarks, I outlined issues that are vital to the future of the Southampton village we know and love. Controlling development, installing a sewer system, and remediating and protecting our environment. I don't see how anybody can be against these goals. It just seems so obvious to me. And yet in my campaign, I've been attacked. There's been false ads. There's been anonymous phone calls. My wife even got some criticisms of me on Facebook. So I don't understand what's going on underneath the surface. This should be a fun thing to do and try and lead our village. I'm happy to try and do it. I believe I have the intelligence, the experience, and the integrity to be a great trustee. Thank you for listening to me. I hope I have your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew?
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you to you for moderating the debate. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, the residents that are watching, fellow candidates, and Trustee Parrish as well. The last 2 years have been filled with progress and promise. Even though we were slowed down due to COVID, we were able to accomplish much. I was able to work on the cupola at Cooper's Beach, advancing Cooper's Beach to #2 in the best beaches of the United States, bringing the community choice aggregate plan to the village of Southampton. It has been a pleasure to work with the village, its employees, and other trustees. I have truly seen how collaborative efforts can cause transformation and improve the lives of the people we are serving. Finally, I want to emphasize the importance of transparency and process in spite of the contentious nature of politics. I strive to avoid negativity and anger in order to keep an open mind and make decisions that are best for our village. In terms, my adopted mantra is don't get upset and always do the right thing.
Thank you. Mark, you're next.
Thank you. A great thank you to the League of Women Voters, CTV, Robin, Roy, and Andrew. Appreciate the productive, insightful conversations. This village means a lot to me. My feet have been connected to this ground for 50 years. I was elected in 2019 as a trustee by the residents, and I've worked really hard. I haven't been perfect, and I may have missed some things, but I've been committed to working hard for the village, its residents and employees. I'm proud of the accomplishments. I voted in favor of all water quality issues. I've worked hard on looking at advanced wastewater systems. I've started the window decorating contest that helped the village light up during the wintertime. As far as the art in the windows was another thing. You know, it's been challenging at times, absolutely, but I've learned a lot. Dark Sky Initiative, environmental initiatives have been something that recently have happened here too. More importantly, what I think about sometimes is it's always not what the village can do, but rather who the village can be. And I think this village can be a leader. So on September 18th, I ask for your support along with my fellow running mates, Michael Irving and Andrew Plaro. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin.
Well, thank you so very much. I want to thank the League of Women's Voters for hosting me tonight. It's been such a pleasure, and I've spent the last several weeks campaigning and meeting so many wonderful village residents, and I want to thank you all for tuning in. You really are what makes Southampton such a special place. Thank you all for taking the time to speak with me and telling me your concerns. Anyone who knows me knows that I have a heart to serve. Helping others gives me joy. I really do love it. That's why I spent so much time over the years doing my volunteer work and humanitarian work over the last 20 years. And that's why I want to serve our village and all of our village, to be part of the solution, moving our village forward. And I thank you so very much. And just remember, we are better together. Thank you. And it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Robin. I want to thank all of the candidates for your participation. And the League thanks in particular Charles Certain and CTV for the technical support. And I thank all of you for watching. I hope you feel ready to vote on June 18th. And if you have neighbors who want to watch these debates, they can be seen anytime on CTV's YouTube channel and Southampton Town's CTV channel 22. Now, watchers, it's your turn. Get out there and vote, because your vote is your voice. Thank you for joining us.